deficit, the $950,000. That's our first challenge. So in looking at, in my opinion, what we needed to do to address this, I had to look at things that could go away and never come back. Not this is a short time fix, not something that'll come back in a year. This is something that when we fix a structural deficit, it's something that goes away. All right. So I'm going to present this by cluster. Okay. So in my cluster, which includes the President's Office, the Board of Trustees, Human Resources and Labor Relations, and the North County and South County centers. This is the element of the President's cluster. So we looked at the operational expenses. And I didn't want to itemize every single thing. I'm just going to be in broad strokes in here. So these are the areas that I went after. I went after line items in contracts and miscellaneous. We have some small dollars in my office for short-term temporary, which we don't use. North County operations, marketing and printing. Marketing and printing, you know, we're no longer going to print a class schedule. You know, we've been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on printing costs, at which we've been slowly paring down. Well, we're eliminating that, and we're going to take that money out of the marketing and communications budget. Human resources, recruitment, and legal counsel expenses. You know how much recruitment has been going on in this campus. As we've been going through the conversions of hourly employee positions to permanent classified employees, as we've gone through several administrative searches and processes, some multiple times, it takes a lot of resource and time. We're going to save about $25,000 in that area. We had an unbelievably large legal budget of almost $190,000. Thanks to the good management of our legal counsel by Laura Benson, our interim HR director, we've been able to cut that in half. Because what was happening is that everybody was calling an attorney, and they talk and think in 15-minute increments. And what happens is people want to get on and have a conversation with an attorney. You don't have a conversation with an attorney. You come in with a well-prepared plan, you give them some questions, and then you wait for the answers in another format. So we've cut a large portion. So the large portion of this is really in the legal services and recruitment. In the area of personnel, again, if you can fully understand why I'm not going to talk about specific positions today, it would be unfair. It would be unfair to the individuals whose position might be affected. So I'm going to talk in generalities about it, but look at the dollar amounts. About $116,000 will be reduced in this particular area. It does include a layoff, and it does include reductions. So the total in my cluster is $274,000. In the administrative services cluster, this includes you know, the financial services, M&O, computer services, police, etc. In the operational area, $224,000 of expenses that were reduced. Some of the more significant ones, which is really the opportunity for us to change the culture of our college. One of this is in printing contracts. We're going to be moving away from everybody has to have a printer, because everybody that has a printer has to service that printer at an expense of toner and labor. And we're going to be moving towards a network system of printing, which we'll contract out. And the cost of that contract versus what we're spending internally is a difference of about $50,000. The other thing we're going to be doing is that now that most of the payment for student fees, registration, books is done by credit card, that's a cost to the college. So we're going to pass on that convenience fee to the students and the user. And that's about a $55,000 savings to the college. In the area of layoffs and reductions, we have about $83,000 in the area of reductions. These are mostly in the form of position reductions. There's one freeze in here of a position that will be open, and we will be freezing that position for a total of $307,000. In Academic Affairs Cluster, the operational expenses, on this go around, because of the large need in our academic programs, we're living on an antiquated system of supporting division operations through supplies and equipment, etc. This is an area on the first go-around we can't go in and cut and expect it never to come back. So we stayed away from that. But we have an expense that goes on. We found that we can, on certain programs, we do not have to provide on-deck lifeguards. We also know that in terms of supporting students and community through library access, we have more and more use of the library with online services, online resources, and there's less need for continual hard copy purchases. So in those two areas, it's $77,000. In personnel layoff and reductions, in the faculty and classified, about $113,000. Some of the faculty in that area has to do with some part-time faculty in non-teaching areas, and some classified reduction for a total of $190,000. And then finally, in Student Services Cluster, in the operational side, we have $87,000. Much of that is in two areas. One of the things that we are going to be doing is restructuring some of our programs. As you know, Dr. Schwab is retiring in August. I took to the board an action to the Board of Trustees last month for a non-renewal of a management contract. The position of Director of EOP&S will go away because we're going to merge those two programs together, and we will go out and advertise for a new position called the Director of Student Support Services, which will blend together EOP&S, DSPS, and outreach. Academic support, which has been part of that unit, will be realigned with learning resources, and will report to Mark Stengel, the Director of Library and Learning Resources. And with that comes a separation of budgets. We'll have a savings in the operational budgets. We'll go towards this $87,000. And as I said before, part of our deficit, or our structural deficit, is our DSPS, district funding for DSPS. So this is an area where we're reducing some of the operational expenses in DSPS in order to drive towards that, offset that structural deficit. In the area of personnel, management classified, a little more than half of that is a savings from the reduction of the position in EOP&S. The other are work year reductions in classified employees for a total of $215,000. So in summary, on this structural deficit, our goal was $950,000. This particular plan would yield us a little over that, $988,000, if everything pencils out when we get actually down to it. You see the split between operations and personnel. About 55% of it is in operations, about 45% is in personnel. The distribution across the clusters, when we met with the combined council of college council and planning a budget, we all presented with a uniform approach. We were all cutting the same thing. Well, we knew that was not a possibility. So this is more of a cross-sectional, out-of-silo operation where we have to look across the college to see how we distribute the reductions to meet our structural deficit. And you see that the bulk of that came out of administrative services in terms of the largest share, and in my area. So that is the structural deficit. So now we move on to the second hurdle. We've been hearing percentages all over the place. We heard 8.1, 14, 17, 12. It seemed like it was changing on a relatively regular basis. Well, it was. We were continually getting new information from the state, There continued to be updated analyses of what was going on, the state. And so with the assurance of the fact that we don't have a June vote, our best case scenario, which originally was around a 7 or 8%, now became not the absolute worst, but the next worst. The worser, I guess it's called, right? Which we've determined is a 9.1%. The target is $4.3 million.